Welcome to Two-Way. I'm Mark Halperin. Big day here on the platform, a triple header. Dan, Sean, and I for the morning meeting now. Thank you for joining. Then at 5 p.m. Eastern Time today, the debut of Meghan McCain's Happy Hour, and then a special Elon Musk focus group with young people from around the country live at 6 p.m. on Two-Way tonight. In other words, we're asking for 3 hours of your time today. Please be forthcoming. Pretend it's an episode of Rogan. Thank you for joining. And four, because you always watch. Sean, it's a given. Everybody watches your show every day.
Okay, I'm just saying.
It's a given. For Two-Way, 3 hours for Sean and Al. Thank you very much for joining. This is Two-Way, and this is the morning meeting where Dan, Sean, and I run through the news of the day. Here on the Two-Way platform, as some already have, you can raise your hand, your electronic hand, to try to get part of the conversation. We love having new people. So if you're first time on the
Mark, you're getting
platform,
a
please raise
couple
your hand.
questions. How do you connect Meghan? Someone's asking already, how do we connect to Meghan's show? Could you please share that?
So you can sign up for my Substack at Wide World of News, and you can see the way to get on the there's a YouTube. It'll be on our YouTube channel. If you want to be part of the conversation, go to twoway.tv/Meghan and sign up there, and you'll get a link to be part of the conversation. So those are the two ways. Watch it on YouTube or X the way you normally would on Two-Way, or you can sign up at twoway.tv/Meghan to be part of the conversation. Thank you, Sean. I'll run through the day book, then we'll talk about it, then we'll bring you in for the conversation. As I said, if you're here on the Two-Way platform, you can raise your hand. Wherever you're watching us, please, peace, love, and understanding to all. If you hear something you don't like, use it as an opportunity to understand your fellow human beings rather than an excuse to say you'll never watch the platform again. The main storylines continue. One of my pet peeves about some people in the media is they feel they have to change the lead. Because like, well, we led with that yesterday. No, always lead with the lead. Haley Barb would say keep the main thing. The main thing is to keep the main thing, the main thing. Same three leads today as we had yesterday. Russia, Ukraine, Musk, everything Doge and Musk, and the New York City mayor. We'll put in a little bit of reconciliation, which we're going to talk about today because it's pretty interesting what's going on. Today, the president starts his day at Mar-a-Lago. He wants to end up at Miami. Now, if I was at Mar-a-Lago and I wanted to end up in Miami, I'd leave time for traffic. If I had a Secret Service detail, I'd say, turn on the sirens, guys. We'll get there in like a few minutes. The president is he leaves Mar-a-Lago. He left Mar-a-Lago, according to the schedule, at 8. So he's already out and about. And he's driving to Palm Beach Airport, very near Mar-a-Lago. That's quick. Then flying to Miami for an event. Sean, why is the president flying to Miami from Mar-a-Lago?
Oh, dear Mark. Here's what I had the same initial thought, and then I kept reading the schedule. Where does he go after that?
After that, he goes,
and then they go to the Faena,
and then he comes back to DC.
Right. So I think the point is they either had to move the plane once, or they had to move him and then the plane. And the idea was just get it all down there, get him off. It's the most secure way of doing it, and then he's going to fly to DC.
It's like the guy who was stealing wheelbarrows rather than dust.
Gentlemen,
so repositioning the plane.
I mean, Donald Trump
I don't buy it.
Told everyone that he cares. As someone who lived down there for a year, if they shut down I-95 in the middle of the day for an hour-and-a-half drive down to Miami, that it would be riots in Florida. Oh, it is the right thing to do to go in the air. Helicopter
right.
Ride.
I mean, that's a side effect. But my point is, if you drove down and shut down 95, then you still have to, the plane is in West Palm. You still have to move the plane.
Yeah, no, I know. I mean, either way, I mean, it'd be like driving to Philadelphia from DC and being like, yeah, we're just going to close 95.
Yeah, but if you got to move the plane, Trump might as well hitch a ride, save some time.
Right.
Sean's right. All right.
Whenever I do this, I always send my plane ahead and then I drive. It's just one of the things that I've gotten used to doing.
Now, to be clear, he's landing in Miami at 9:25. He's going to Doral, and he's spending the day at Doral. He's going to golf again. One of the great phenomena of Trump.
We don't know that.
Right. One of the great phenomena of Trump is he will mock other people for golfing, and then he's golfed like half the days of his presidency. Incredible. Somehow he gets away with it. I'll never understand it. In any event, he'll probably golf today. He's hanging out at his club all day. Now, yesterday we told you he might answer questions during the signing ceremony. There was nothing public on his schedule. And for those of you who watch Two-Way tonight, you know, he ended up having a full-blown press conference. He didn't even do the signing ceremony in public. It was like earlier on Trump 2.0, he signed a bunch of bills. And then he walked out and had a full-blown press conference. So running through the Trump Day book's a little silly, but he'll probably have a press conference.
I look at that as a marker. right? So he put on the schedule today, I think it's 7 o'clock, aboard Air Force One, sign executive
Yes,
order.
he'll have a press conference on Air Force
That's
One.
when he
But
brings the pool forward.
yes, and say, let's have a press conference. But he'll probably talk earlier. So he's going to this conference. It starts at 5 p.m. It's the is it F2 or FII? I don't know. Priority. It's got something to do with crypto and the Saudis. And he's going and it says he's participating. I don't know what that's all about. You could Google, there's a bunch of articles about it. I don't really get it. And then as Sean said, he gets on Air Force One after that conference and he signs executive orders on the plane. Oh, to be in the pool today, because you're going to get an airborne press conference. And it's not easy to file on Air Force One. If the Soviets knew how unsophisticated the media's capacity to file on Air Force One was, they would just laugh. They would just laugh at us, decadent Westerners. Anyway,
By
that's
the
his
way,
schedule.
there is a degree of intention, meaning the staff has Wi-Fi and phone access. I posted a picture yesterday, my gratuitous phone shot on Air Force One where you call your mom. But the press doesn't have access to the Wi-Fi.
Yeah, the staffs, I have to say, the staffs, unless they've upgraded since I covered the White House, the staff capability is not so great either. Like you're better off on a JetBlue flight.
Well, just to be clear, I'll tell you this: it depends on where you are in the staff pecking order.
Yes.
Well, after 9/11, didn't they substantially upgrade the communications equipment on there
for the president and the senior staff, but not for the run of the mill people, as I understand it. All right, the vice president, I believe, saw this report. It makes sense. Is in Washington, and he's going to go to the weekly lunch of the Senate Republicans. As everybody knows, they have weekly lunches, and today they're having their weekly lunch of senators, and the vice president's going to go. House is out, Senate is in. In addition to having lunches, they're doing a bunch of stuff on confirmation. The labor secretary nominee has lost Rand Paul within the committee. She may or may not be confirmed, but their record so far is pretty good, and they seem to want to get her confirmed.
I will say this: among all the people in, like, we've talked before extensively about MAGA world getting behind in the effort, whatever. There is not a person that I have talked to, and I say this respectfully because I don't know her, former member of Congress, that is willing to put and again, I'm not trying to I have not talked to a person on the right who's willing to put a tweet out in support of her. It's just an interesting.
I wouldn't be surprised if we saw another nominee. It's still a very confusing choice to many on the right. All right. In a controversial, Judge Ho is having a hearing today at 2:00. What's the guy's name? Bove? Is that his name? What's the name of Emil Bove? Anyway, the acting deputy attorney general himself is going to show up in a New York courtroom. Of course, he used to work in the Southern District of New York, and on behalf of the people of the United States in the Southern District, he's going to say this case against Mayor Adams must be dropped, or it will be a massive victory for the deep state. So we'll see how that goes. Judges have huge discretion. It is very complicated for a judge to order prosecutors to prosecute a case that they don't want to prosecute. So I'm not really sure how this could end in any way, but him maybe protesting.
The legal folks that I'm not a lawyer. But I had the same question. There's no way a judge can force a lawyer to do so.
Yeah. So he might express outrage, but what he can do, and I predict he might do, that's kind of a Weasley thing to say. I predict he might. But I'll say it another way. It's possible that what he's going to say is he wants to know more. He wants to know more about the internal communications. And then the Justice Department will have to decide if they want to violate the judge's order to give them a little bit more behind the scenes documents, emails, notes about how this happened. And I think that could happen. And of course, Governor Hochul has basically said, I'm not going to, she hasn't really said anything because she's so wishy-washy, but what she seems to have suggested to some is she's not going to remove Mayor Adams, which she can do under New York's extraordinary gubernatorial power vis-a-vis the mayor of New York City. She's not going to remove him until she sees how Ho goes. I like to say that, Ho goes. So we'll see how Ho goes, and then we'll see what happens. But I'll say again,
by the way,
Eric Adams is not going to be reelected.
So just to be clear, though, think about this. The Trump deal is contingent upon Adams
doing what he wants.
And the second she removes him, he's gone. I mean, this is kind of a very interesting web, because the second that she removes him, he's no good to them. Then they prosecute him. I mean, this guy's
As everybody recalls, they've asked the charges to be dismissed with prejudice. So the minute he's no longer useful to them, and if he's no longer mayor, presumably he's no longer useful to them, It's still a mystery why they've done this. There's all sorts of theories about setting an example for the other U.S. attorneys, using the Southern District as kind of the strongest case. If they can make the Southern District bend the knee, all other U.S. attorney offices must pay attention.
Oh, by the
We'll
way,
see.
it's also a mistake for him, because I think we've talked about this in the case of Bob Menendez. The greatest strength that you have is the power that you currently maintain in the office that you hold. So the
Correct.
second
The
that
minute
Adams is
the
out
minute
of
you give that
office,
up, yes,
right?
yes,
Then Katie bar the door, baby. So
yes, and
I actually think it's a mistake for Adams, because right now, under every scenario, he's gone. I mean, whether
yeah,
it's the voters or by Hochul,
he's
and then he's
he,
done.
he's not going to be mayor. Probably won't be mayor by Easter. I would say, and maybe well before. But he's not going to be reelected, and so
Well,
there's
he
some
won't be
focus on these.
reelected, but he may still be mayor through November,
He
through
might be,
getting,
but
leaving
I don't
office.
I don't think so.
I mean,
I don't think
why would he leave? Like, it's the
because
only thing.
Hochul's going to remove him.
She's not going to. I don't think she will.
She's going to remove him. She is. She's laying the
Rather
groundwork to
happy, you
remove
know
him. I
what?
believe. I believe she's laying the
Here's the
groundwork.
bigger question: does Hochul remove him because she also is trying to prevent Cuomo from making a comeback?
No,
Yeah.
she knows he's going to. She knows he's going to run for mayor.
Oh no, he'll run, but does she block? I mean, is that put an obstacle?
No, there's nothing she can do to keep him from running for mayor, or probably keep him from winning mayor. There's nothing she can do.
Okay.
She can play all the machinations she wants. She doesn't have that much influence. All right.
Oh no,
So
I'm not giving the influence, but you put I mean, you could help orchestrate it in some way that it makes it more difficult.
she has no horse who could stop him,
Okay.
who she can position no matter what she does. It's certainly not Adams. Now, Adams' approval rating in New York City is about what Donald Trump says Zelensky's approval rating is. Donald Trump said a number of things yesterday that were not true about Zelensky. He's leaning towards Putin in a way that he has for a decade, which is one of the great mysteries of Donald Trump's time in public life. To his credit, he has done some things that have been tough on Putin. Sanctions on Putin, canceling the pipeline. He cites them all the time. He has not been a softy on Putin in terms of policy uniformly, but in terms of rhetoric, he has been. And that is why people like the Wall Street Journal, please put up number 103, please. The Wall Street Journal, the New York Post, both owned by Rupert Murdoch's, that's why they wrote editorials today being upset about Trump and about Putin and saying you're rehabilitating Putin, you're being too soft on Putin. This is what the president said yesterday in his press conference about Zelensky, seeming to blame Zelensky for the war and being wrong, claiming Zelensky's approval rating is 4% when it's about 54%. Here's the president from yesterday, 101.
And I think I have the power to end this war. And I think it's going very well. But today I heard, oh, well, we weren't invited. Well, you've been there for 3 years. You should have ended it 3 years. You should have never started it. You could have made a deal. I could have made a deal for Ukraine that would have given them almost all of the land, everything, almost all of the land, and no people would have been killed, and no city would have been demolished, and not one dome would have been knocked down. But they chose not to do it that way. Not to do it that way.
Now, that remark was universally interpreted, or nearly universally interpreted, as being about Zelensky. Sean and I thought it might have been about Joe Biden. I asked somebody, they said, no, he's talking about Zelensky. Zelensky today in a press conference in Kyiv reacted negatively, escalating the war of words between these two leaders who have, of course, a very fabled and checkered history. Here's Zelensky from earlier today attributing basically the President Trump's remarks to his being a dupe of Russia. 102, please.
Unfortunately, President Trump, I have great respect for him as a leader of a nation that we have great respect for. The American people who always support us, unfortunately, lives in this disinformation space.
So, Dan, here's what I don't get. You've got all these critics in the foreign policy establishment, Biden people in particular, saying Trump is abandoning Europe, Trump is soft on Putin. They had no plan to end the war. They had no plan. Trump's plan's not great. Bring Putin back, not great. But what do the critics like Paul Gigot and Chris Murphy and the foreign policy establishment, what plan did they have to end the war?
Look, they didn't have a plan to end the war, and I don't necessarily think what they're questioning is ending the war. It is how Trump is going about trying to end the war, which is he's looking at the Russians and basically saying, let's just make a deal. right? Like it's time. It's time to do something. Ukraine, just like shut up. Europe, shut up. Stay out of this. You and I talk, and let's talk about our business in Russia, and let's talk about all the things that you and I can do together. But I believe we have fought, and Trump has not said explicitly, like we are on the side of the Ukrainians. Russia invaded Ukraine. It's stagnant. No one's really been able to move these trench lines for most of the last 2 years. A little bit here, a little bit there. Both sides want a deal. So I think the question is just, why wouldn't you bring the Ukrainians to the table? Like literally with you. I mean, Sean, why wouldn't you bring the Ukrainians to the table?
Because I mean, look, anyone who's been in a high level negotiation recognizes the more people you sit around that table, the more everybody gets picked apart. The bottom line is,
so Sean, why are the Russians at the table?
We wouldn't have been.
Because he's trying to solve it. Because he's trying to solve it.
He's trying to solve it. And the last thing you need is someone over there that's useless when it comes to actually solving the problem. The bottom line is for 4 years, the Biden administration got us into Ukraine because of feckless, weakless leadership, and they didn't do anything to stop it. And the bottom line is everyone wants to snipe at Donald Trump for actually trying to solve the problem and end the bloodshed.
But hold on a second.
Day,
Sean,
stop worrying about who's at the table and worry about whether or not we're going to solve this and end the war.
As long as there's security guarantees of some sort for Ukraine, as long as they keep as much land as possible, and as long as there's an aggressive posture towards European stability, no one should care how he does this. They really shouldn't.
Ukraine needs to buy in on the solution. There's no question.
How did it work out in World War I when we told the Germans, like, here are the terms? If you have a divorce, do you tell one of the two parties, just don't even bother showing up?
No, but you don't bring the boyfriend or the new wife to the table. You solve it between the two people that matter.
Here's what the Council on Foreign Relations and the Wall Street Journal editorial board seems to not be aware of. Public opinion. Americans do not want to spend more money on this war, and Zelensky is a money pit. We keep sending money there. I'm not minimizing the bravery of Zelensky or the bravery of the Ukrainian people or the incredible feat of their standing up to Russia. All of that's spectacular, but they are a corrupt money pit who are never going to end the war, because Zelensky would not end the war when it was going well, because he didn't want to end it when things were going well, because he wanted to get more territory. And he wouldn't end it when things were going poorly, because he was on his back foot. No, let me just finish. Okay. So Donald Trump saying nice things about Putin, I don't love it. I think it's morally bankrupt and it's bizarre, but I don't care about it as compared to a president who promised to end the war, who has a plan to end the war, and Zelensky and Europe are going to have to deal with it. Europe, read the Wall Street Journal story about Europe today. This is pathetic. And I think of all the things that Trump and Musk have done, and Vance have done so far, the German stuff notwithstanding, telling Europe your economy is nothing. Your military force is nothing. Your capacity to defend yourself is nothing. Your lurch to the left is destructive. Do something about it, because the United States people are not going to pay every time Putin decides he wants to be aggressive. We're just not going to pay for it anymore. Dan.
Well, look, I think, though, Mark, respectfully, there were 3 different subjects in your statement. Europe is ineffective right now. I agree, and it is great that they're beginning to have the conversations to get their.
But Dan, let me stop you on that one. Okay, if Europe doesn't get more effective, and then there's a deal, whatever the guarantees are. What Donald Trump is saying is, if Putin does it again, we don't want to be the ones paying for it. It's your backyard. You deal with it.
But again, these are 3 different conversations.
Right. I address that one.
Back together is one thing. Yeah. And nobody is saying, or at least I'm not saying, and a lot of Democrats are not saying, Europe should be there. You said Ukraine is a corrupt mess, right? True. Putin is a corrupt thug. He's an autocrat. He invaded their country, and we believed the right thing to do was to draw the line, because there's worries that he will not stop there, right?
I 100% condemn that and agree that had to be done.
All right. So now the question is, you're right. He wants to end the war. So all I'm saying is, and I think the Wall Street Journal and others are saying is, he seems to be all about Vladimir Putin. And why wouldn't you bring Ukraine? It's 2 sides are going to negotiate it. I mean, you guys are shaking your head. And look,
Because he
that's what he's going to do.
because he doesn't think it's the right way to end the war, because as Sean said, it's going to complicate it.
Well, but hold on a second.
Zelensky doesn't want to end the war.
That's not
Zelensky's
true
the
at
guy
all.
who the other day who
That's
said
just not
Putin-
true. He said it multiple times. He wants to end the. I mean, that's
Zelensky is the one who said,
Except when things are going well or poorly.
and same
There's
with
only two
Vladimir Putin.
conditions.
I mean, Vladimir Putin is the same way. Like, I mean, look, he's going to do what he's going to do. We all want the war to be over. Ukraine wants it over. Russia wants it over, and the U.S. wants it over. And I give Trump credit for having the kahunas to move forward. I'm just saying, having Ukraine at the table. If you cut a deal that they don't like and Europe doesn't like, it is hard to see it holding in the future.
They'll
The history
like
of the
it.
world
And
says
that's-
They'll like
they
it.
don't hold.
They'll like it. General Kellogg's in Kyiv today for several days of meetings, by the way.
Okay.
Son.
no, I just think I agree with Dan on that. If Ukraine doesn't buy in on the end, then okay. But right now, the bottom line is, how do you get a deal as soon as possible to end the killing? And this is the most effective way. It was Zelensky himself the other day that said to Christiana Ampor, Putin fears Trump. Okay. Putin fears him. He doesn't fear Zelensky, for God's sakes. No one does. So the bottom line is, who is going to be able to sit in a room and get a deal quicker than anyone else? And that's who, and it's Donald Trump. And he doesn't need a bunch of ankle biters sitting around trying to snipe at the deal as he's closing it.
With
I
all
know
due
you've been asked-
respect, I think Zelensky's playing mind games. I don't think Vladimir Putin fears Donald Trump in any way, shape, or form whatsoever.
John, you've been asked this a million times. I'm going to ask you one more. Why does Donald Trump habitually say nice things about Putin and false things about Zelensky? Defamatory and false things.
Look, I think that there's a degree. Donald Trump loves the bigger the challenge, the greater the desire to solve it. So you tell him who the biggest dictators, the biggest tyrants are, the most difficult people to deal with, and he instinctively says, I want to solve that right there. Tell me who the people are that no one else can deal with. Biden never had a relationship with Xi. I will. Tell me who else, didn't do anything with. He wants to do what no one else can. And so right now the issue is, Biden didn't do anything for 4 years to stop the war. Putin's the guy. Fine. This is a negotiation to him. He's basically saying, you know what, Putin, I can do a deal with you. Why don't you and I sit down? But that's his approach. Every time he has met with a challenge, you think about it, even domestically, at the beginning of the term, it's let's bring these guys in. We'll sit down. That's how he views a business deal.
Meeting with him is different than talking positively about him and defaming our ally Vladimir Zelensky.
And a deal only works if
Well,
you're
just to
willing
be clear,
walk
Mark,
away.
let's go back. I mean, you can go back 4 years. Like Zelensky hasn't done himself any favor with some of the comments that he's made about Trump.
Of course. But to say the guy's got a 4% approval rating when he has a 54% approval rating, he's just running him down. And he's doing Putin's business. Putin is the one who says Zelensky has a 4% approval rate. So Trump is just echoing that. All right. We got to move on to Musk. And again, if you want to end the conversation, please raise your hand. Elon Musk, last night, Hannity aired the full interview. You search long and hard. Go to ChatGPT and ask. Presidents rarely do joint interviews with anybody. When they do it, sometimes their spouse, sometimes the vice president. But I don't know. Can either of you think of a government official who did a joint interview with the president? I can't.
Well, not just once, but I think this is the third time in the last 7 days they've done one together.
Well, one was a press conference. I don't think the others.
Two have been press conferences where they just stood side by side and went back and forth. I mean, it was
but Trump did that with like Fauci, during COVID. I mean, it's not rare to share a podium.
Like Musk.
I agree.
Okay.
I agree. So I want to show you a clip from the interview last night. This is going to be 102. I'm sorry, 104. Where not only are you going to see the kind of dynamic between them in a joint interview, but you're also going to see Elon Musk making an extraordinary claim about Donald Trump that I don't even know if Trump's children would make. Play 104, please.
In order to save taxpayer money, it comes down to two things: competence and caring. And when the president was shown the outrageous bill for the new Air Force One, and then negotiated it down, if the president had not applied competence and caring, the price would have been 50% higher, literally 50% higher. The president cared, the president was competent, the price was not 50% higher as a result. And so when you add more competence and caring, you get a better deal for the American people.
Someone call out the art of
But
the
that's
deal?
caring. No, it's not even the art of the deal. It's caring. He
It's
uses the word.
competence and caring.
It's caring.
Yeah.
It's a certain competence, but I think it's more caring than competence.
If you add either ingredient, either competence or caring, you'll get a better outcome. But it stands to reason that if you don't have competence, you don't have caring, you're going to get a terrible deal. And the problem is that the American taxpayers have been getting a terrible deal because look at the last administration. Can any reasonable person say that the last administration was either competent or caring?
Love, exciting and new. Come aboard. They're expecting you. So big debate in the Democratic Party. Should they keep going after Musk? He's clearly very close to the president. Dan Pfeiffer, a former Obama advisor, in his Substack today raises this question. Then last night on Fox News, on the Jesse Watters show, a leading Democratic strategist made the case. For God's sake, stop Democrats attacking Musk. Please play 105.
You keep hearing Democrats running against Elon Musk.
Yeah.
Is that a good strategy?
Terrible. Look, the number one thing in politics is you want to respect people, listen to them, and solve their problems. But what have we been doing the last 9 years, and certainly the last month? We talk about who and we talk about how, right? Process. Elon Musk, Donald Trump. What we're forgetting? What they're doing. Therefore, we're failing the common sense test. Rather than saying, hey, some of what they're finding, anybody in the right mind would say, we should end it. Instead, we scream about everything. And so when we find stuff that, in our opinion, probably is worthy of a discussion, the average voter says, forget it. All you do is scream no, and they're crazy.
Should you play possum?
Look, I think as much as I like Chuck Schumer, he's a terrible dancer and an even worse singer. So yes, I would stay out.
Man, that is one handsome, articulate dude. Sean, Elon Musk does not seem to play by the normal rules, just like Donald Trump. Like, he's impervious to a lot of this stuff. So do you agree with Dan that attacking Musk is a bad idea?
Yeah, I think more Democrats listening to Dan would be good for their party. It's just, Dan's analysis was right. They're missing the point here. If you're focused on the person, yeah, you could drive their negatives up. You could drive their fave, unfaved, in the wrong direction. But at the end of the day, that's not why people are going to vote for you, support you. They're going to support you because you've got a better way that they want to hitch their wagon to. And they're missing that. Dan's analysis was right. I think, but I will say, just as a side note, I thought last night's interview, 100%, yes, not normal, just in the sense of a staffer theoretically sitting down with the president in a non-emergency or public health way, the way that you do maybe after a natural disaster, or Fauci did and others during COVID, was fascinating. But the thing that it did more than anything else was it dispelled this notion that everyone in DC thinks it's like, how much, today they're going to break up and this isn't going to happen. Last night, the president of the United States putting himself on the line with Elon in that interview showed that they are aligned and together, and dispelled the whole notion that the left and so many in the media and pundits are trying to say it's not going to last, it's not going to happen. The president clearly appreciates his efforts, likes him, and that was shown last night. And that there was a huge usefulness to what happened last night. And I think that it's going to dispel a lot of these ideas that it's, a matter of days. The president appreciates not just what he's doing, but how he's doing it, and the fact that he's kind of become a heat shield for him.
Dan, I'm not going to ask you if you agree with your analysis, because you do. So let me ask you this. If you were inclined to help Elon Musk and he said, Dan, should I be trying to get better press coverage than I am? What would you tell him?
I mean, look, the interview last night was good. I think when he spoke at the press conference with Trump, it was pretty good. I mean, what you see, I think, in Elon Musk is he's becoming a politician. I mean, he's got one-liners, he's got catchy phrases, he's good on the attack. He seems to understand, he pumps up Trump, both on X when he's sitting there, he's praising them. I mean, to me, what's almost jarring is to watch Trump sit there and be quiet as Musk talks and talks. Trump says a little, Musk kind of adds on. Usually Trump is the one who's like, oh, I'm going to pick this up. I'm going to put the polish. I'm going to make the final.
It's effing crazy. It's effing crazy.
Yeah. I
mean, see
he,
Donald Trump sit there and just kind of listen. It's like Melania. He has to be
I mean,
submissive or whatever the right word is. It's crazy. All right, we got to do rapid round because I want to get everybody in. We got a couple topics to go. So rapid round, just like one sentence, one phrase, whatever. Dan, in the Johnson versus Thune, one beautiful bill versus two beautiful bill war, they continue to fight amongst themselves. Are we going to end up with the Senate plan, two bills, or the House plan, one bill?
Senate.
Sean.
I think the Senate still wins. The House Republicans need to do a better job of selling the amount of deficit of programs that they are reducing and spending that they're cutting, and they're not doing that. And the problem is they're not on the same page. The Freedom Caucus members that I talk to are like, whatever. And that's a problem. They're not excited about this. They're not fighting for it. Whereas the Senate is unified and they're bowling forward and they're all telling the president the same thing. We're ready to go. We're ready to go now. And this is what you get. You get points on the board with us. If you go with the other guys, maybe, who knows when, blah, blah, blah. And again, the president calls around the House guys and he's like, yeah, I guess we'll vote for Johnson. Maybe, maybe not. If they do too, they don't have a sense of unity that is missing that the Senate has.
I
Sean,
did one word.
Yeah, I know. I know. I agree, Sean, with what you say. And I generally am a believer that the Senate always rolls the House. But I heard some things yesterday that made me believe the House may actually win this fight. As amazing as that is,
I think
they might actually win.
By the way, Trump took Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid off the table.
No. Well, first of all, that's actually an interesting point to make, Dan. But I will say this: I believe from the conversations that I've had with House members, the House deal is better for conservative values, especially on the fiscal side. They just aren't all behind it yet, and not selling it. But if I were to vote, I would say go with the one bill, get bigger savings, roll taxes into it, and let's go.
Yes, that's why the House may win. They've got the endorsement of
all right,
Spicer.
I'm not giving one-word answers anymore.
No,
but I will say this, Dan.
Sean.
Dan, you missed. So here was the caveat last night on the entitlement programs. The president said, I'm not touching Social Security, Medicare, which is okay. And then he said, of course, the waste, fraud, and abuse, though, and they're out there.
Yeah, it's not the out for comprehensive savings.
No,
in any event, Dan,
I didn't say, Dan, I didn't say comprehensive savings.
I know. Dan cannot be penalized like that, Sean. One word is one word. Cut it out.
Oh.
All right, here we go. You get a paragraph on this one. Sean, what's the worst moment the media's had in the last 24 hours?
It was about 10 seconds ago.
Yes,
Tony Gill of CBS. Thank you. I appreciate this. Tom Cotton, I don't think I've watched CBS mornings ever, but I saw that Tom Cotton was on there. He was talking about China. I love Tom Cotton and I love talking about China. So I watched the interview. Tom Cotton is talking like he is a huge champion of the existential threat that China poses to the United States. And the first thing that Tony Doepel of CBS says is, well, let's be honest. China and the United States both want to dominate the world. What's the difference? And I'm like, wait a second. We don't want to dominate the world. China actually does. And then the second thing he said is he goes on in the interview to say, well, let's face it. You talk about the military, the economic thing. The one thing that we haven't talked about that we're facing is DEI. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. I don't think there's a person in the world, no matter how leftist you are, that puts China, the economy, the military, and then says the number 3 issue the world is facing is DEI. That's insane. And again, just the downward spiral of CBS. It was literally, if you ask Chat GPT, how can CBS blow itself up in 72 hours? They would say, first put Margaret Brennan on, then follow it up.
My friend Steve Krakauer says CBS News won't exist by the end of the year. Dan, rather than give an example, and the whole rapid round concept has just gone to crap. Let me ask you this: Is the dominant media doing anything to right the ship, to understand the mistakes that they've made? Do you see anything that they're doing that suggests, yeah, they kind of get it?
I don't know if they get it yet. I think they are starting to have some, the profiles of Carolyn Levitt, the fact that their profile of Charlie Kirk, Steve Bannon had a positive one. I think they are beginning to try to offer up some.
The Washington Post made Sean Person of the Year.
Oh, yes. You mean that Saturday thing?
with a giant profile that made him like they made him like Brown. They made him like Brown versus Board of Education, like freedom fighter, precedent setter.
I forgot about that. Was that
Yeah,
Saturday?
I know you did.
Washington Post?
It was the Washington Post. You know what? I think it was the Free Beacon.
Yeah.
No, it was the Washington Post. Now that I think about it. All right, we're going to bring everybody in. Thank you for your patience. If you want to be in the conversation, raise your hand. There's some new people today. Super excited. But we're going to start with this intriguing tableau of Chris Taylor and company. Welcome in, you two. Tell us why your relationship thrives when you watch two-way together.
Yeah, nice. Go ahead.
Oh, so we have so much to talk about for the rest of the day.
Yeah. Well, tell folks where you are, why you're calling in together, what's on your mind.
And what's your name? I see Chris, but
I'm Leslie Taylor, Chris's wife.
Leslie, welcome, and thank you both for being here, for watching. Again, for folks who don't know, say where you are and what's on your mind.
Okay, so we live in northern Idaho, college town of Moscow, Idaho. And what's on our minds is we were listening to your evening show last night, and we heard a guy named Mike call in, and he was talking about the havoc that COVID has unleashed on the world, deaths, transfer of wealth during lockdowns and things like that. So, Mark, I just wanted to kind of add to your comment. You were saying last night on your show, how is COVID not just the story of the century? And I just wanted to comment that there's a lot more that the mainstream media is failing us about COVID in particular that has to do with like the ongoing health ramifications that people are still having. So like COVID was 5 years ago, and people are still having ongoing health ramifications from this that just the news media isn't reporting on. So I just wanted to give a couple examples of that.
Please.
Okay, so the first one, I don't know if you guys are ready for this, but it's pretty interesting. So there's a doctor named Pierre Corey. Have you guys heard of him? So he leads something called the Leading Edge Clinic, which focuses on people. It's an online clinic, and you go there if you have either like a vaccine injury or just long COVID, and then he specializes in helping you. So he sends everybody's blood to a doctor down in Birmingham, Alabama, named Joseph Vaughn, and he's considered the leading blood specialist on blood clotting in the country. So anyway, your blood gets sent there when you sign up for this clinic. So I want you guys to guess what percentage of Pierre Corey's patients have microclotting problems in their blood.
70.
Okay, 70. Can I get some other guesses? The other two?
50.
50? Okay. Any more?
I'll stick with 50.
Okay, 50. So I don't know if you guys are ready for this. 100% of the blood samples that he sent down to the microclot specialist in Birmingham, Alabama, have microclots in their blood that were rarely seen before COVID.
But
the sample space is the sample space is people with long COVID.
Yeah, the sample space is people with either long COVID or long vaccine injuries. So obviously not a random sampling of the population, but yeah, that's the sampling.
So just so I'm clear,
and does he have a sense if did those two things cause the clotting, or maybe did those people were more susceptible to clotting and therefore they suffered greater from like which caused which? Does he have a sense?
That's a really good question, and it's probably not one that we can answer right now.
can you give me what's the name of this doctor again?
Okay, Pierre Corey, Kory is his last name.
Okay.
And
All right.
Leading Edge Clinic. So that was one thing. And then another thing, so I have a health coaching service, and so I'm regularly running into this. So one of my good friends has like a life-threatening, what's called a deep vein thrombosis, which is a giant blood clot in her leg. And then she also has 2 pulmonary embolisms, which are in your lungs. So I asked her to go get a COVID antibody test, which is kind of like a proxy for how much spike protein is still in your blood. So she got the COVID antibody test, and it came back as 25,000 plus, which is higher than the level that the test goes up to. So it came back as off the charts. So
Well, and what's normal?
normal would be 0.8 or below.
Are you a medical professional?
I am not. I am a health coach.
Okay.
Yeah.
A nutritionist.
Health coach. Okay.
Nutritionist.
Okay. I want to stop you there and just make a couple points. And thank you for sharing all that. First of all, we're not experts on this. Our colleagues are sending around various clips about the doctor you're citing and about his record and some of the critiques that have been made of him. So we're not going to adjudicate the facts of what you said or
Yeah.
the credibility of the doctors involved, because we're just not going to be able to do that here on this program. But what I will say is this: your point of view, say this all the time, tens of millions of people agree with you, and I agree with you on the general point. There's way too little information in our society about the impacts of the vaccine and the impacts of COVID itself. And as I said last night, the origins of COVID. And agreeing with that, taking that position, which to me is not controversial, is not the same as endorsing everything everybody says regarding these subtopics. The gentleman who came on last night made a claim about the origins of COVID that I don't agree with, but I agree with his general point that the origins have been insufficiently investigated by the media. So hold on tight for a second. I want Sean and then Dan to respond overall to what you said. Sean.
I would just look, I think that the broader point that I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but my takeaway, I guess, is the way to phrase this from what you're saying is, and what I have opened my eyes to in the last probably year and a half, is that for a long time, I think I speak for a lot of people, as Mark would say, tens of millions of people. When I say, when I'd go to the doctor, my doctor would tell me something. When I heard that the FDA or the CDC or the NIH approved something, I just assumed that it was all in our best interest. And I have started to realize how many conflicts of interest there are, how much suppression there is of medical advice. When I was growing up, you were literally told, go get a second opinion. And now the idea is that if you're told something and you question its validity or seek a second opinion, you're the crazy one. So anyway, I would just say, I appreciate this idea of at least looking for alternatives, trying to make sure that we go further. We're seeing more and more, I've said it before, ultraplastics, red dye, all these things. I'm not a medical professional either, but I find it fascinating how things that we once assumed were unequivocally true, we now find out there's more. There's more to them. More to it.
Yeah.
Dan. Sorry, go ahead. No, you go,
Mark,
and then Dan.
I was just going to say really, I think my point was that this stuff is having to be talked about in the corner of the internet on Substack instead of it being talked about in the mainstream media. That was my
100%. 100% agree with that. Dan.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Why isn't it happening?
Yeah.
Well, Dan, go first, and maybe he'll answer. And then
I
I'll
think
chime in.
two things. I think one, on the origins of COVID, part of the problem is it originated out of China, and we can't just walk into China and start snooping around, right? The Chinese have very intentionally kind of locked the world out to say, like, we'll tell you how this happened, speak when spoken to. And we don't have a lot of leverage on that. As much as we wish we did, we don't. So I think we all would like to know the origins of COVID. Scientists would like to know the origins of COVID so that they can try to sequence and figure more out. I think at the same time, there is in the moment, I believe scientists tried their best, both with vaccines and what they thought were the right things to do for society. We as a society got a lot wrong. Well, no, I mean, that's just my opinion. I don't think it was a nefarious plan to screw MAGA or we were in bed with the Chinese because we hate America. Like, I think that people tried to, wait, well, hold on a second. And they made mistakes. People have not admitted to those mistakes. And now we are trying to figure out what are the long-term ramifications. I have family members who have not been the same since COVID, just absolutely are not the same. They're frustrated. They're a little depressed because they don't know, what does this mean? One of them is in their mid-50s. They're like, am I going to struggle to, be tired all the time and have trouble exercising and stuff like that for the rest of my life? Like, what's going on? And so I think there's a lot of money. People are trying to figure out what are solutions, what are these diseases. So I happen to be optimistic and think that people are trying to do the right thing, and hopefully we get answers soon.
Dan, I agree with the analysis on China, right? Obviously, you can't just walk. Not only can you not walk in, but they do everything to obfuscate. Okay. But the point that I think is broader here, in my opinion, is knowing all of that, right, that they're not going to help us, that when common sense, you don't need a science, an advanced degree in science or immunology or medicine to say, so let's get this straight. There is a disease in a town where there's an infectious disease lab, and common sense would say maybe that's somewhere that we should look. And when you are gaslit by everyone in the media and on the left saying, how dare you think that it possibly came from an infectious disease lab in the town where it came from, it doesn't pass the common sense test. And that's where I think the problem for a lot of us on the right have, is that we said, hey, this is kind of weird, right? There's a disease that was released from a place called Wuhan where they have an infectious disease lab, and everyone goes, no, 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 it came from a wet market. And you are told that you're an idiot to presume that the most common sense thing is not something that you can discuss, and you'll be banned and censored for suggesting it. That's where I think the line is that it wasn't that there was a difficulty. It was that scientists and people like Fauci said, if you espouse those thoughts, then you should be banned and censored for them. In fact, we will actually do everything we can to cancel you. That's the problem.
Yeah, look, Sean, and I wouldn't limit it to just the vaccines, right? If you thought kids should go to school in the middle of COVID, you were irresponsible and terrible. If you thought a business had the right to be open and somebody had the right to go eat in there, you were going to kill grandma, right? Our party got a lot wrong. In hindsight, we did, and people won't admit it, which is why one of the reasons we're in the minority.
Yeah. Taylor's, do you have one more point you want to make? Then I'll say something and we'll
just my thought was that you've got two different sides. You've got obviously the origin story, where'd it come from? How much did we fund it ourselves in China? You've got that whole side. The second side is the solution, the COVID vaccine. So ironically, my cousin was in the White House leading up that from the military side. He was a colonel or something, running I forget the name of that campaign, but spreading this vaccine across the world. The vaccine has caused enough damage itself. Like that's a different story completely. And it's like I don't even care about the origins. It's like, let's talk about the damage caused by the solution.
I'll just take, yeah, go ahead.
Well,
go ahead.
but the vaccine also did some good. It hurt some people, but it also saved some people.
Yeah,
it did.
So I'll give you the question of why this isn't covered more, and why information is so scarce that some people get it from some medical professionals who don't have the most chaste records, is, I think, at least based on two things, but it's a very complicated topic. One is it's caught up in red blue, and the press doesn't want to do anything that red America might like. That's part of it. But I think there's another factor, which is medical professionals and the press don't want to create panic. They don't want to create panic. And if the suspicions that you have and others have about both the lingering impact of the disease and the potential impact, mass impact of the vaccine, if those things are true, one or both are true, it's a public health panic, right? If you believe that some combination of the vaccine and the disease inside of you still can cause serious health problems for yourself or your kids, that's a panic. And until people know more in the medical profession, or science writers, until they know more, they don't want to create panic, because the implications of if the speculation is true is massive. It's massive. We can't afford it on one level to deal with it mentally, financially. Sorry, go ahead.
But people need to be aware of what some of their symptoms might be, so that they
Of course. That's the right way to handle it. But if you were sitting with public health professionals and the president, and they said, here's what we know, and now we're going to tell people, if you are experiencing this, you're going to experience it the rest of your life, or you need to get the following treatment that's going to cost all this money, and your insurance company won't cover it because it's experimental. That's, you're right. Most people would say, I want the best information for myself and my family. But if the scope of the problem in one or both cases, lingering effect of the disease inside of you, implications, impact of the vaccine, if those things are true on a mass scale, again, it's a panic. And I know there are people in both professions who say, I don't want to be in charge of setting off that panic because I don't have an answer yet. I see that there might be a problem, but I don't know how the solution is because nobody has one.
Well, and think about Trump made a similar calculation when COVID broke out, right? He said to Bob Woodward, we knew things were, but they didn't want to cause panic. He didn't want to come out and kind of say how bad it might be, you know, and there's some empathy there a little bit, right? I mean, in hindsight, he was criticized, but to Mark's point, that push-pull is what public officials, and if they make the wrong choice, they get voted out of office.
But Dan, I will say this: the last piece about this is we talk about accountability, and you're right. I mean, to some degree, the Democratic Party paid a small price for this, meaning some people lost, and it was somewhat of an issue. But what the damage that we did to a generation of children is irreparable. And the idea that someone might not have gotten whatever, but Fauci's still going around with book deals and payoffs, and it's just, to me, that's not accountability. If this was any other circumstance, people would getting hauled in front of Congress and being held really accountable. There's tangential
Sean,
political consequences.
But the way that you talk about it assumes that he was intentionally trying to screw people. I don't believe Fauci did. I think he made mistakes.
But Dan, there's a difference. Making a mistake is, hey, 2 + 1 is 4. That's a mistake. Telling people that if you say a word, I'm going to cancel you, I'm going to shut down your business, is not a mistake. That's a difference.
He didn't say shut down. Like, he didn't cancel people.
No.
Even the progressive world canceled.
Right. Okay. You're right. I wasn't trying to impugn everything that Fauci did. Fauci did a lot of bad things.
Taylors, thank you both for coming. We hope you'll come back regularly. And I appreciate the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
If Fauci moves to Idaho, can he count on your support if he runs for governor? No. Okay. We'll let him know. Okay.
I was in Idaho this weekend. I don't think that Fauci could count on anybody that if he voted, he might not be able to buy a house.
All right. Thank you. Come back regularly, please. All right. That was a good conversation, and it used up a lot of our time. And instead of bringing in someone you don't know, bring in someone you do. Meghan McCain,
Hello,
debuting
Meghan.
tonight.
Hello, Dan.
Happy hour,
Thanks,
5
Sean.
p.m. Eastern time. Meghan, thanks for coming. We know you're busy preparing for happy hour.
I am.
Tell everybody what to expect with happy hour, 5 p.m. Eastern time tonight.
First of all, thank you so much for all your support, and Dan, all your tweeting and social media. Sean, haven't seen any from you, but that's okay.
Not yet. Sean's got a big plan.
Dan, I'm just kidding. But I am so excited to start tonight. It's going to be every Monday and Wednesday at 5 p.m. We're calling it Happy Hour Two-Way, which I think is so fun. And my first guests tonight are my friend Mary Catherine Ham, that you guys all probably know. She's a wonderful political commentator on Fox and many other places. And then my old friend Perez Hilton. And I told him I really didn't expect when I was 23 and we were out clubbing at Ledoux for this to be the sort of pathway of our friendship, that you're coming on to talk politics with me on my new show. But we all aged, and we're going to talk about Elon Musk, baby mama drama, Doge stuff, Meghan Markle's new attempted rebrand, Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively, and then trying to see if anything in the political landscape isn't going to bore the living hell out of everybody, because
I knew my subscriptions to Us Weekly would pay off, and now
majorly.
So what is the menu? What is the preferred method? Do you want a full glass when you come on the happy hour? Do you
So I actually don't drink anymore, so that's why it's funny. But and it's just because I had kids and it's just too hard. But it's more just people that are driving home, or it's the end of your day. I love political news like you guys do, but this show is obviously very wonky and politically dense. But I love pop culture stuff too. Sean, you're very wonky. You are.
Should have heard the fight we had earlier today about a conference committee. Meghan, if people want to watch live at 5 p.m., where can they go?
They can go on YouTube or the Two-Way app, and I think that's it, right? And thank you for
or they can
camera. I have the most beautiful camera ever, with the most beautiful lighting. It's not going to be my bedroom. I have a beautiful studio to do it in, so I'm very excited. So thank you.
I thought you'd be in a bar or something. It would be.
Yeah,
no, it's metaphorical.
It's more like the 10. I met the.
You just want to be happy.
Yeah, and just it's not going to be quite as like it's obviously political, but I'm really fascinated by pop culture news, and I think it all feeds into one another. And like, you know,
Yeah, totally.
Justin Baldoni, Blake Lively, people are taking his side because cancel culture's over. Like it's all. So I'm excited. I hope you guys will.
What
Also
side did you want on that?
Yeah.
I'm Justin, like everybody else.
Your team, Justin?
Yeah, and they made a
Yeah.
huge mistake going to Saturday Night Live this weekend, Blake and Ryan.
That didn't look good.
No. Thank you, Chauncey.
I was fine with their going. Let them live their lives, even amidst all this. Anyway, you can watch Megan's show if you want to be part of the two-way conversation at Megan's show. Go to twoway.tv/Megan. Remember how to spell Megan's name. Sometimes it's spelled incorrect. I don't know why. Seems pretty easy to me. And that'll be, as she said, 5 p.m. tonight's debut, and then it's on Mondays and Wednesdays. So tonight and then again Monday. Megan, we look forward to it. After Megan's show, two-way tonight, special episode with our colleagues, partners at Look. We've recruited a focus group of younger Americans, extremely interesting group from all over the country to talk about Elon Musk and Doge. What do younger folks think? So join live. You'll be able to be part of the conversation if you're on the two-way platform, but we'll talk to them about what do they think of Elon Musk? Where do they learn? Where are their information sources about Musk? How did they think of him before Doge? It's a great group. It's a super interesting group of young people. So join us for that. And then tomorrow night, Sean, Dan, and I will be back tomorrow 9 a.m. Eastern time. Tomorrow night on two-way tonight at 7. So we'll do a usual episode at 6, normal format, normal type of guest. But then at 7, special episode, 90-minute or so episode. Our colleague Chris Gotti Lorenzo and Damon Dash will join us. Chris's brother just passed away and had a stroke. And so we're going to be talking about lifestyle choices to avoid having a stroke or diabetes. And then every second counts when you or someone around you is having a stroke. Every second counts to get to the hospital. So we're going to talk about how to tell when somebody's having a stroke. So those are the two big issues: lifestyle choices to make to avoid diabetes or potential stroke, and then what to do to be able to identify a stroke. So that's tomorrow night, two-way tonight. It's a lot of programming, and there's more coming. I keep telling you, we have some programming coming that you're going to love. Probably not as much as Meghan McCain's Happy Hour, but Michael Moynihan will be starting soon, and some additional shows. So Megan will be here at 5. I'll be here at 6, and then the three of us will be back tomorrow morning at 9. Any questions about the schedule, you three? You guys have it down?
I
have
got
the
the
schedule
schedule.
down?
I actually, I'm doing a whole preview on the midterms tonight at 6. So if you're interested in elections and where the House stands,
6
you can
o'clock.
go
All right,
for
we
it.
can watch.
Come on over at
You can
6.
watch. You can
We don't
watch
even
on
have
live and meet
candidates.
tape or
How are
vice
you
versa.
predicting this?
I know.
Those of you who didn't join two-way tonight last night don't know that Haley uses a mouse pad. I'll be reporting that on every episode until she tells me she's gotten rid of it. I don't know. Does anyone else have a mouse? Do you guys use a mouse? It's all trackball, all track screen.
No,
You
no.
do.
You have? Oh no,
Mouse.
in my studio I actually have a mouse. It's a Apple one.
Haley,
but-
Haley, I withdraw the mocking. Apparently, everyone uses the
I
mouse
do
but me.
not have a mouse.
And
I
I
have
still
not had a
read
mouse.
newspapers too. Not
I haven't-
online.
Also,
Creepy.
I'm going to be
Weird.
doing audience interaction just like you. So please be
Yeah.
nice to everybody.
Yes, that's why I
Um,
say if you want to be part of the audience and be able to ask Megan a question, remember, Megan is just as insistent on peace, love, and understanding and the presumption
I
of
am.
grace as I am, maybe even more so, because sometimes I deviate from peace. Always
You're-
understanding and love.
You guys are all very evolved Zen, peace, love, and understanding. I still am like, I was talking to your producers yesterday. That I was like, what if someone says something mean? Because I was like, we're just gonna, but that has never happened apparently in the history of the show, which is such a good
Really
testament to
doesn't.
the audience.
It really doesn't happen very much. Haley got mad yesterday when I criticized her for MassPod, but I didn't unmute her, so her anger was muted. Anyway, again, tonight, 5 o'clock Megan, 6 o'clock two-way tonight, 9 a.m. tomorrow, two-way is the morning meeting, and then 6 o'clock tomorrow night, our special regular program, and then special at 7 Eastern. A lot to remember. It's all on my Substack and my Twitter. 7 o'clock, we'll talk about strokes and diabetes, and Damon Dash and Chris Gotti will be with us. So thank you for watching.
I love
Thanks for
Damon
everybody who
Dash.
raised.
You
Yeah,
gotta
well,
ask
you
him
should do it. You
about
should join it.
dating Janet Jackson, like, because that's some good dish too. Just
Yeah, in
they were
control.
together, like,
And so many people had their hands up today. Sorry we didn't get to very many people, but the COVID topic is a really big one. And please come back tomorrow. Raise your hand again, and Dan and Sean will adhere to the rapid round rules, and we'll get more of you in.
Not anymore. We're not.
Thank you. Yeah. All right. See you at 6 tonight. Thanks, everybody. Or
Thank
5
you.
tonight for Megan, then 6 tonight. Have a great day.
Talk